Hey folks, we're now less than a week away from the release of the Nintendo Switch 2 at the time of uploading this video. As an avid Zelda fan and content creator, I can't wait for what the Legend of Zelda series holds on the console. We already know about the Wind Waker being available from launch through the Nintendo Switch Online, and that there's a brand new Hyrule Warriors game coming later in the year. Both things that I'm very excited for. But naturally, one thing that never seems to leave my mind is that next big 3D Zelda game. The next Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess, and so on. This is Nintendo's most powerful and up-to-date console now, and I cannot wait to see where they take the next Zelda game. One question that I've recently been pondering on, thanks to seeing all of the openness and exploration side of Mario Kart World, is where will the next Zelda take place? Where will we be exploring in this next adventure across Hyrule? Or maybe not Hyrule? That's the question. From land, sea and sky to other worlds and realms, where could we be exploring on our next adventure with Link? Be sure to go and grab yourself a delicious snack and drink, folks. Send a photo in for a chance to be featured right here in a video. Be sure to drop a cheeky wee like down below and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Now, let's get into this one. The first and most obvious answer to this question is Hyrule. This is where the majority of Zelda games take place, and the likelihood of it being here in the next game is pretty likely. Hyrule is a kingdom that we see presented in many different forms and points of time. We've seen it as a very classic fantasy adventure kingdom. It's been through a gothic stage, a post-apocalyptic stage, an underwater stage, and we've seen it during its first age as it was being established as a kingdom. Hyrule works for a setting, and in this next game it could come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. Given the power of the Switch 2 and the direction other games seem to be taking, like Mario Kart World, which looks bloody massive by the way, I feel like there's a fair chance that we'll be seeing a larger kingdom much like we did in Breath of the Wild. Only this time, I'd hope it is during a time where the kingdom is more alive. Settlements full of people, buildings still intact. How we saw the kingdom in games such as Ocarina of Time and Twilight Princess, but on the scale of Breath of the Wild. I personally feel that this is the most likely outcome. A predictable thing to say, but an undeniable probability. Though, there are aspects that could be added to this to further the world. In a map based on land such as Hyrule, we could see the return of an alternative realm to explore, or open up some of the sea or coastline for us to explore, such as islands that could be sailed to or fast traveled to via boat. Limited, but expanding on the overall setting. This reality would be great, but there are other options that could actually happen. On the topic of islands out at sea, it's not too crazy to picture the next game being based at sea. This has only happened twice, with the second time being a sequel to the first, but it has happened with The Wind Waker and Phantom Hourglass. On modern hardware, the idea of the next Zelda game being out at sea goes kinda hard. If you can imagine land even just half the size of Breath of the Wild's map, but spread out across various islands, then you've got quite the adventure ahead. This would work incredibly well on today's hardware. A huge open sea with hundreds of islands, from tiny islands that might not contain much or any inhabitants, to huge islands that are home to their own settlements, people, and life. I think if this was to happen, take it one step further than the Wind Waker. Instead of having one main settlement per larger islands, why not have large islands that contain more than one settlement? Maybe even small kingdoms on islands, broken down into several settlements on different parts of the island. Maybe even being home to a dungeon or two. There could be several different mini-kingdoms across the sea. Hylian-based islands, Gorons, Zora, Gerudo, Rito, and so on. Maybe in this time frame, the groups we know have changed a little with their ways of life, as we saw other groups adjust in the Wind Waker. I'd also like to think that we'd see new groups out here, perhaps a tribe that knows the ways of the sea, or pirates that are up to no good. There are endless possibilities if this is where the next game takes place, and so many different implications for what it could do to the lore of the series. In our last adventure at sea, Hyrule as a kingdom was deep below the waves, a kingdom washed away to time. Maybe this time, Hyrule could still exist, but in the form of one of those larger islands. Maybe the Kingdom of Hyrule is more of a territory at sea. Maybe the regions as we know it currently exist within their own islands. I promise we'll move on from island talk soon, but one more thing that would go with this is small mini dungeon islands. A similar concept to the shrines, but to avoid that repetitive feeling, I'd rather have less of them and make fewer that do exist more filled. Maybe pirate strongholds or abandoned islands with treasure deep within. We could also see a variety of regions across the sea itself. Colder waters with icebergs and frozen islands. Warmer, tropical waters where we can see the shallow bottoms. Murky waters with a feeling of unease travelling through, and of course some classic stormy regions, making for one heck of an adventure. I could go on and on about the possibilities if the next game takes place out at sea. One random, but pretty cool idea I have is turning Ganondorf into Pirate-dorf. You heard that right. Why not have Ganondorf become an evil pirate who sails the seas on a grand evil ship? Maybe even the infamous Ghost Ship, which would be a very cool return in itself. Speaking of ships, maybe Link could have one for himself like in Phantom Hourglass, with its own customizable options and features, or maybe he'll have to join a crew and sail the seas together. All of those cool things aside, one huge thing that this setting would likely bring is a development to the Wind Waker lore, and potentially the adult timeline lore in general, depending on where this game would take place. Perhaps this game would call back to Link's former adventures out at sea, even if it does take place thousands of years later. I don't think that this is out of the picture. However, I feel as though we are more likely to see a game set on land primarily, maybe with more out-at-sea exploration on the side of that. You never know. But if this is to be the setting of the next game, the potential to make it unbelievably epic is absolutely there, and there's still several things I could go on about. But for the sake of not turning this into a video just about a Zelda game at sea, I'll leave it there. And I'm not even going to go into the huge tangent that is underwater exploration. This is something I would love back in the next Zelda game, and if it was set at sea, there's endless possibilities with that as well. An alternative location that the next Zelda game could take place in is an alternative land. This is something that we've seen before in the past through games such as Oracle of Seasons and Ages, two games that take place in Holodrum and Labyrinth, locations that exist in the same world as Hyrule but are separate places. The most known case of this would be the setting of Majora's Mask, however, the sequel to Ocarina of Time that takes place in Termina. If this next Zelda game was to take place somewhere out with Hyrule, I think it would go down pretty well. Exploring Hyrule hasn't gotten old, but I feel following Tears of the Kingdom that there's a bit of a bad taste left over, following all the criticism Tears of the Kingdom took for reusing the same Kingdom of Hyrule. Moving Link's adventure to a brand new location could be just the breath of fresh air the series needs. It's hard to build a picture of this, as an alternative land could look the polar opposite of Hyrule. It could also look similar and just a little different. But the main things I feel this would bring, and that fans would engage with well, is the lore. Surprise, surprise, I'm talking about lore again. Not only would there be brand new lore exclusive to this new land, with its own cultures, history, and people, but there would be the opportunity to connect this separate life to the life we know in Hyrule. Perhaps having a world map somewhere in the game that shows us the whole map of where this game takes place, and then shows us where Hyrule is in the same world. Maybe this game takes place in a different continent to where the Kingdom of Hyrule is located. This would massively expand and open up Zelda lore and history, which, as a content creator, makes me drool at the amount of stuff there would be to talk about. An alternative land would also be interesting for the people of the land. Maybe we'd see familiar groups such as Zora or Gorons, but here they live life differently to how they do in Hyrule. There'd of course be new groups as well that can only be found here. Returning to an alternative land will always be an interesting idea. I don't think it'll happen in the next Zelda game, but I'd never say no to an idea that's a little different. And typically, Zelda games thrive by doing things a little bit differently each time. Now, there are also some pretty out there possibilities that I wouldn't consider highly likely to happen, but there is a small chance. I've heard fans talk about the idea of Zelda pulling a Mario Galaxy and taking a leap into outer space. Whilst this would undoubtedly be cool, I think practically for a Zelda game, it wouldn't work as the primary setting. However, I do believe it could work in the same vein as an alternative realm, a smaller size area additional to the main map of Hyrule, or wherever we are. We've been to the moon before in Majora's Mask, so why not have Link travelling into the cosmos and exploring galaxies far and wide? This question of where the next game will take place could also apply to more than just a geographical location. The question could also refer to where it will take place in time. The idea of Zelda taking place in a whole different era, such as a Victorian-inspired era, or Wild West-inspired era, is interesting. I personally think this would work best in a spin-off game, as I can't see this big a change happening in a main 3D game anytime soon. Now, one idea that I can't not bring up is one that I've dubbed in my head as the Unthinkable. Could this next Zelda game do something truly remarkable and unthinkable by creating an absolute behemoth of a game that has everything we just talked about? Or more or less. A map not just tied down to an adventure within Hyrule, nor tied down to an adventure just across the sea. What if, with the capabilities of the Nintendo Switch 2, we see a giant Zelda game? One where we can explore the world on land in a kingdom of similar size to Hyrule from Breath of the Wild, with an open sea to explore as well. Not just the shores surrounding the kingdom, but actually explore outside of that and find islands and maybe whole other lands with their own people, cultures, and adventures for us to have. Add on an alternative realm to this and you've got a ton to explore. Saying it out loud, maybe the mainland doesn't need to be as big as Breath of the Wild's Hyrule, but still have it be a decent size. It's possible for this to happen, but I can admit, just because this can happen doesn't necessarily mean it should. If this was to happen, there are conditions it need to meet in order to work. First and foremost, ensuring that all this space is filled with content. This is something aspects of Tears of the Kingdom suffered from. That game added a lot of room to explore, with the depths and sky islands being added onto the kingdom. An issue many fans had with them, myself included, whilst visually they were really fun to explore, there just wasn't a lot of content with them and things to do. There were a lot of repetitive designs and features, which had a bit of a wow factor upon seeing them for the first time, but especially with not much to do around them, it quickly wore off and became a little boring. I wouldn't want a huge kingdom to explore, with an open sea to sail, and maybe even another realm to explore if we'd just be walking around doing small mundane tasks, with maybe one main quest. There would need to be life to these locations, people to talk to and take on various quests through, new animals and enemies to encounter, new lore to these locations, and genuine content to discover and keep us coming back. Would it work? Yeah, I don't see why it couldn't if it has content to discover and keep us coming back, not just somewhere we'll visit once and never return. The thought of a giant Zelda game on an unthinkable scale is awesome. It might not be the most practical, but if this was to be how we're exploring with Link next time around and it's done right, I'd be more than happy. Just think of how much there would be to discover, talk about, make theories about, and go down endless rabbit holes. Only time will tell. And if I'm being honest, I don't think this will happen, and that's probably for the best. At least not on the scale I'm picturing. But the next big Zelda game might be pretty sizable with what the Switch 2 can handle. And the purpose of this video was to discuss the possibilities of that. Where will the next Zelda game take place, with what the console can handle in mind? Let me know down in the comments where you'd like to be exploring in the next new 3D Legend of Zelda game. From a classic Kingdom of Hyrule and some surrounding areas, to another voyage across a great sea, or maybe somewhere different entirely. I want to hear your thoughts and get a conversation going, which is exactly why I made this video. I'll be reading and replying to as many as I can. I hope to see you down there. Thanks a ton for watching, folks. I really hope you enjoyed, and if you did, be sure to subscribe to the channel for lots more fabulous Zelda content from myself. And drop a cheeky wee link down below while you're at it. I really appreciate it. The Nintendo Switch 2 release is so close now. At the time of uploading this video, it is less than 1 week away, and I cannot wait to have my hands on the new console and play some Mario Kart. But you know, I won't stop thinking about the next big Zelda game on this console. So if there's any other topics you'd like to hear me discuss or make into a video, be sure to let me know down below. A massive thank you goes to all of my channel supporters across both Patreon and YouTube memberships. Their support is a big part of helping to make these videos possible, and if you'd like to join them in supporting whilst getting yourself some rewards such as access to my exclusive vlog, your name at the end of videos, and a shout out when you join, then consider checking out the supporting links down below. Any and all support is massively appreciated, so don't feel any pressure to need to, but if you want to, I would highly appreciate it. Also down there are the links to my socials if you'd like to keep up to date with me, or even join my Discord server where you can chat to myself and many other lovely Zelda fans. Thanks again for watching, folks. I hope you have a great rest of your day or night, and until the next time, I've been Hyrule Gamer.